I have platinumed Secret of the Mimic. With 25 trophies to unlock, I'll show you the journey from gathering collectibles, discovering secrets, and witnessing horrors. The quick rundown of the story is that we are a Fazbear Entertainment employee, Arnold, who has been tasked to retrieve some tech developed by Edwin Murray. Our dispatcher informs us he has gone quiet, but as he was a contractor, the tech is legally theirs. It is reported by their motion sensors that someone is still inside the building, moving around. This someone is an entity created by Edwin. It is an endoskeleton that can adapt to any costume or character. Unfortunately, it encountered some homicidal glitches in its programming, and we are advised to be mindful of the fact that this entity could potentially be inside any costume or character we see, which would be true, as my first trophy involved getting jump scared. Oh, hello. Oh, he's on quick. And there's our first trophy. Not in a zero chance. Get jump scared. As I was exploring my way through the facility, I stumbled across a locked gate that can only be opened with a hand crank. Conveniently, there was one nearby stuck to a box, but as I kept rotating it, a clown known as Jackie popped out. I took the hand crank and unlocked the gate, which took me to another room. I then started to rev the power generator inside, but that would turn out to be a big mistake. Hi! You have found me. Oh. I'm stuck. Oh my goodness. Hello. Surprise! Run. After that fiasco, I needed to upgrade my data diver, which unlocks doors throughout the facility. There are these machines located around the building, and with each upgrade, I'll get a step closer to the technology located in Murray's office. I would have to go through the big top showroom, where I had to restore power to the area by solving this puzzle, and the animatronic attendant handed me a ticket, which I then gave to this giant hand popping out of the curtain. It is a kind of unsettling area with its music, Big Top who carefully watches your movement, and numerous mannequins placed around. In this room, there were 3 sets of games that involved hitting targets. I unlocked 3 trophies here. The first is shooting Mr. Helpful with the ball gun. I then participated in a round of ball toss where I hit the nose for the boop trophy, and then knocked out all the teeth in a single round. Each time I completed a round of these games, the lights would go out, and there were dozens upon dozens of mannequins. Some of them reacted with a voice if I moved too quickly, and Big Top was there, slowly rotating with its light trying to find me. I would dash to the front of the room and reset the power again. After doing this, I went to the prize wheel, as Mr. Helpful informed me I had won a free spin, which caused the power to go out again. I could then hear loud noises and found Big Top gone. Moved on and found the upgrade machine for my data diver, then decided to take a shortcut over the rooftops, when unfortunately I notice a ticket falling from the sky and suddenly Big Top appears. I try to run into the building, but it destroys everything in its path. Somehow making it out alive, and with the new upgrade to my data diver, I can now go into the workshop to access the backstage of the theatre. However, I need to put on the captain's springlock suit, yet it is nowhere to be seen. I must pick up the parts throughout the workshop while dealing with the suits that randomly come alive. Pay attention to my surroundings so I don't accidentally alert them with the chains hanging from the ceiling, and eventually the suit will be put together. I make my way through 2 areas before being part of a show with Puppet Foxy and Roxy. I could see the data diver upgrade machine in the distance, but had to participate by shooting the targets that appeared. Eventually the room would start collapsing on itself, and I would find myself in a new area, being greeted by Nurse Dollie. She expresses her sympathies for the captain and goes into excruciating detail on how to fix him.
We must clear out the foreign material. First, we will blend up the foreign object. Then, you'll need a stringent steam clean to soften up the remaining organic material so we can scoop it out. Finally, we will flush out your interior with a power hose, then give you a nice long soak in the bleach bath. You will be shipshape in no time.
Luckily, there are over 4,000 tasks ahead of him, and she departs for the time being. But we run back into her again, as the only way out is through the area she occupies. I managed to find the next data diver upgrade, and had to deposit these cubes of trash into the incinerator to fuel the power to the door. Yet Dollie forces her way through the ceiling to chase us on a conveyor belt, but conveniently, these levers drop more trash for her to stumble over, eventually leading her to fall into the incinerator. As I make my way through the underground, I'm left stunned as Dollie begins to melt through the wall and pursue us. I manage to get away to an elevator, which after a mechanical fault, the audio guide helps me repair it and unlocks me a trophy. Yet Dollie is still not done, as she drops on top of the elevator. This time we repair it again and set its speed to the max. The cool little detail here is that we witness the entity leave the suit just before the elevator crushes Dollie and unlocks another trophy. With a new data diver upgrade, this meant we can now access the warehouse that will take us to the admin wing. Unfortunately, it is occupied by Chica and a dozen cupcakes who act like sensors for her. In this room, there was a door locked behind a code, which I ended up figuring out with the several mail machines throughout the office. These machines are a set of collectibles that we'll need for a future trophy. Upon entering the room, I get the belated birthday trophy, as well as a present collectible where we'll need them all for another future trophy. After getting past Chica once more, I enter the admin room and upgrade my data diver, which allows me to access Murray's office to obtain the technology. I then had to take an alternative route back, which was through a pitch black basement where the lights flicker, and they were my only hope to stop this white tiger from attacking me. Successfully making it to the main lobby, our dispatcher congratulates us on returning with the technology and asks us to put the data diver in the inventory system. However, I decided to check out the computer and ran the parachute executable, unlocking me a trophy. It begins to reveal a hole in the floor, and the dispatcher starts questioning us. Assuming that it is likely 2 separate endings, I decide to hand in the data diver and leave the building. It all goes wrong for Arnold as he drives home. The real dispatcher has been trying to get a hold of him all night, and with the data diver misplaced, they let him go for the company. It goes from bad to worse as the entity has made its way into the vehicle, concluding with the trophy clock out. Now it was time to experience the second ending, by escaping through the hole in the floor. The dispatcher is angry at Arnold's decision, but we continue onwards, running another executable at the main entrance where the floor begins to descend, and it turns out Big Top is still functional. Luckily, we escape just in time and end up in the deepest part of the facility, research and development. It is covered in darkness, so we restore power, revealing not only prototypes of the main stage, but that the entity had followed us. To escape it, we use these suits and place them in front of these red lights, which cause the gates to close, but also unlock the other gates to the side. The dispatcher threatens us that if we continue to do that, the power will run out and we'll be stuck down here forever. Eventually, we make the power deplete even further, causing these doors to open, revealing a machine inside, known as F10N4, who can manipulate its voice. It asks us to fill one last obligation before it runs out of power. It wants us to head to the main house and activate the communication subterminal to convince Edwin to repair the entity known as M2. If we don't cooperate, it will never stop pursuing us. It opens us a secret pathway to a cart taking us to their house and unlocking a trophy. Of course, M2 follows in pursuit, and throughout this house there are rooms that contain film reels to be used in this safe room. They provide more depth into the story, and we begin to discover how there are two entities that Edwin created, M1 and M2, designed to mimic what they see and hear. M1, who becomes F10N4, was created after the passing of Edwin's wife Fiona, in order to look after his son David. However, David tragically passes away, and F10N4 convinces Edwin to create M2 as a mimic to David. Edwin becomes overwhelmed with grief of focusing on his work rather than his family, that he lets his anger out on M2, and because it was designed to mimic, this is where it learns its dangerous tendencies. At the end of each reel, they reveal a number. I also noticed they were color coded and a Polaroid of the name David where each character is a different color. I input the code into this locked door and it took me to the top of the house, blown apart from the side. Edwin is nowhere to be seen, but there sits an audio log of him, which indicates why he's gone quiet. Just like the male, these audio logs provide more lore, and we'll need to listen over a dozen for a future trophy. I then accessed the terminal and ran the executable, only to find M2 lurking behind and begins to chase us. The building begins to burn, and we manage to make it to the van until we're ambushed by M2, who takes our data diver and leaves elsewhere, unlocking the unfinished business trophy. Now it was time to get the secret ending, which included another playthrough. This time I had to gather every collectible. In this case, my next trophy came from entering the Storytime showroom by noticing this button behind the ball throwing game. Speaking of which, this next one is tied to all the carnival games, and we needed to get the high scores on them. We have the 3 within Big Top's room, however, we needed to take one of the guns with us and place it into our inventory system, because the further you explore the facility, you'll eventually find a shooting game with Roxy, where of course we need the gun as it doesn't have one to begin with. Then there was also another ball throwing game at the very top of the warehouse, and after beating them all I unlocked the trophy. Eventually getting my data diver to maximum permissions again, I'd eventually find all the mail logs around the facility, and then went into one of the scariest areas in the game. Through the mail logs you'll be able to decipher a code needed for this door, which is found on the televisions. This leads us to an elevator that takes us far down. A fallen gigantic moonhead lays in this area that has some missing pieces to a puzzle. The area is dark and we must rely on this portable nightlight that can be placed into these power points, providing light to the surrounding area so we can find the pieces. The only problem is, we're not alone down here.
Lay thee down now and rest, may thy slumber be blessed.
This bright moon mascot who sings its lullabies walks around the halls, meaning we need to carefully avoid making too much noise to alert it. Eventually I find all the pieces and solve the puzzle, unlocking me a trophy. Inside was my last collectible, as luckily New Game Plus remembers the ones you've previously gotten. I then deposited it into the inventory system, unlocking me another trophy, which leads into our next one. We needed these collectibles to progress what is known as moon.exe on the computer, a retro-style adventure game where thankfully the key items are highlighted, allowing us to easily progress through. At the end of this game, we're given the permission to upgrade our data diver even further, unlocking us another trophy. I then made my way to Murray's house, as I could now unlock these doors. They have tapes labelled bedtime story, and I gather them all to place them into this machine, which unlocks event and takes me into another room. A pedestal sits here with the image of the white tiger, so I head back and retrieve the item from the inventory system to place on it. The tapes play the bedtime story and we can see M2 hiding in the closet. Here we must press the corresponding button to the characters on the wall to progress the story in Fiona and Edwin's voice, as it keeps M2 from attacking us. We end up using the data diver on M2, resulting in it going to sleep, unlocking the story time trophy. I now only had one more trophy before the platinum, and that was to listen to all the audio logs, where one of them is extremely hidden, specifically during the area with the white tiger, as we need to pick up the nightlight and backtrack until we find a vent opening, which leads us to an audio log. I was shocked to find out this wasn't the last one I needed, and had to play the game all the way to the ending again to find the last one. Upon listening, it would unlock my 2 final trophies.